After 6 takes, this will be the second take that's supposed to be good. 12 gauge shotgun pistol. Instead of it being the bright orange I wanted. You notice how hard this is to video. This actually bothers me. But anyway, here we go. It has a rib going down the middle, which I'm going to have to light up with a flashlight because it's dark. That ridge acts as the sight picture. Next characteristic that was interesting that I noticed. When you open this thing, it opens like you think it does. When it closes, it does not. It snaps shut very violently. Next is the fitment between the front and back parts. It's a very, very tight fit. It's not the kind of gap you'd want on a shotgun, but it's pretty damn good. Next thing, again with a flashlight. That metal strap there is hooked on that edge, and on this edge it was probably much straighter, and then they crimped it by bending only that one edge with a pair of pliers because I can still see the mark on it. That's kind of significant. Next thing, drop safe. Besides it doing the oddball 90-degree angle and implying all sorts of things I can do to it to make it to where it does all sorts of fun things, this hammer won't move forward unless you pull the trigger. When you do, and I'm going to have to do this with this arrangement, you can see, if I do it slowly, the firing pin on the hammer. Now I'm going to hold that and I'm going to release the hammer. And you saw that movement. Let's do it again. And if you pull it back, no, I don't want to dry fire. What that means is that it won't be able to fire the cartridge if you drop it, even if the hammer's hit. It'll break the gun. I want to convert this into a double action by pulling the trigger. It'll pull the hammer back because I want to make it to where it has an improvement of sorts. Next thing, the fitment and all this sort of thing, I mean, you can see little bits and pieces. It would not affect it as a safety device. As a flare gun, this is not a flare gun. But I'm going to show you another one. Here's a notch here that matches up with this piece of plastic here, so that when they connect like that, it makes it one more point where it won't be able to move forward. Instead of having a block on top to keep it from kicking open, because that would be the hinge point and flip out point, they rely on the spring pressure and on that to keep it from moving, because it will literally push the barrel forward if you put the wrong round in it. That also makes sure that if you haven't noticed, there's a straight line from here down to here, and the weak point in the trigger area, like that, is going to make sure that it breaks along that line. Dead space in the middle. Let's get a look at that. You can see the spring that drives the hammer. Next thing, I'll show you with a flare gun. The flare cartridges are designed to fit inside of the bore this way and also this way, so that they go all the way in and you get an orange end at the end. There's a little constriction right there. That's not a forcing cone. It's designed to keep you from putting in a live round. See if I can get this to work. And there you can see the constriction at the end. It looks even more impressive visually. Look at it from the other end, because this thing is so smooth, you're probably not going to see it at all. Next, normal cartridges besides this one that go into it, this one obviously does not have a primer, is this one. And it's a 2-inch long max length shotgun shell. Doesn't go in the wrong way. Yes, I had it backwards. But it goes like that. And there's a notch in here for extracting the cartridge, which comes in handy. It's extremely small. Visually hard to see, so I'm going to emphasis added. You can see it there and barely. And if I do it like that, you can kind of see it glinting. And right there you can see it dead space, right there. Okay, that's most of what's interesting about it. This thing is much more dense than I thought it would be. The plates that form the unibody for it are obviously fused together, pressed together, glued together from several pieces. I want to make a redesigned version of this that's a downloadable piece of data where you can print it out, cut it out, and make one. Legally speaking, it would be easier for me to make a real 4-gauge shotgun pistol, aka the larger flare gun that's 25 or 26.5 millimeter, 1-inch bore, than making one of these out of even plastic because of all the ATF rules. There's a weird thing about this that's kind of a peculiarity of how I acquired it. Legally speaking, this isn't a flare gun. this is treated as being a different kind of safety item. Safety items are given special exemption, even though this is, by definition, a destructive device and capable of firing once a shotgun shell. This is the normal thickness of a 12-gauge shotgun shell, and this is obviously cut down. It's even rough looking. And it's only really got anything in it for about that distance. And this is a blank. It's a noisemaker. It's for scaring away animals, right? On the handle it says, fires hot gases and metal components. What comes out of this? A 3-foot flame, because they included some pyrotechnic material. It's not even a noisemaker. I just wanted one that I could get a hold of so I could do some experiments and maybe make a design that's better, like having a double action trigger, making it to where it has an ejector on it, all sorts of things like that. And also, I did in fact want it to be, don't shoot me orange. Instead, the easiest, cheapest, and legally least problematic version for the ATF to sell, to let people sell to people, is this thing that would get me killed deader than shit if I actually had it out just sitting on a table. Next, I want to point out, that's the normal thickness for a shotgun shell, that little edge there. Now we have to do the flashlight trick if I can get the flashlight. That's after I cut it open a little bit. That's its thickness now. And I thought it was 3D printed, but really they just rolled the edge in so far that it became a really thick, really tough, really sturdy plastic casing that presses against the top shot card and makes it to where it'll have to burst so it's even louder. And these are flashbang shotgun shells. And they're shorter than 2 inches. Comparing them in size, they're 1 3/4. And I want to point out that the reason for this diameter that shrinks down internally to really 16 gauge or whatever is so that you could physically stick it into most shotguns, so it would go past the constriction that eventually becomes a real shotgun barrel diameter. And the reason they made the 2-inch shells that are really just shotgun shells is so you could use them as well. That actually allows you to have a larger diameter object shoot out, maybe beyond for higher brightness for a while, maybe higher altitude, that sort of thing. Now I'm going to do the 50 BMG thing. First I'm going to do the cartridge that you normally fire, which is this one, or even the other one. You can fit that in there inside of this. It fits in the bore. This is the mini 12-gauge shell that's used for it, and that's how that goes together. This thing is supposed to be the inside of this thing, so it definitely is a constriction. And also, you can take a 50 BMG and jam it in there, and that can actually help you reform the end of it. This thing with the crimp in it does not let me stick the end of the 50 BMG in it, so it's bigger than 60 some odd caliber. And when I rip the thingy off, obviously it'll fit. Now we're going to do the customary, obligatory, let's stick a really stupid thing into this thing. Obviously it fits perfectly. No, it doesn't. This is a slightly off-brand Russian 50 BMG round that actually has more case space in it and has a slightly less taper. I've noticed it's very different because it also uses the wrong kind of primer because it has its own internal hammer. I hate that. Or anvil, excuse me. So, and will it fit in the other end? Comes to a stop right there. Now, where it does stop is actually where you would need to use to turn this into a 12-gauge, full brass, ridiculously large shotgun shell. The stopping point for this is actually dead level with where the actual back of the casing is. If you cut it off there with a hacksaw, I'm actually do that, you do end up with something that's about the equivalent to a shotgun shell. Won't be a 50 BMG anymore. But that does mean that I cannot stick this in there and make it into some sort of subcaliber adapter so that I could use it to fire something simple like a pellet gun pellet and use a 209 primer in the ass end of this or anything like that. So I'd have to use this. Now, the other thing is I'm going to be not only trying to make this into a double action where you pull a trigger and it pulls the hammer back and sets it off. That would also make it to where it doesn't fire as hard. It probably won't set off a shotgun shell. I don't need it to. But what I'd like to do, because I can maneuver that, because on the back you can see there's the pin coming through. This thing can be driven out and positioned in another position, or taken out entirely and just use this as a hammer and have it hit a plate full of other firing pins, multiples. I want to make this to where I can put in an off-center set of holes in this, put in a bunch of primers. You could also put 22 caliber long rifle bullets in, but I want to use primers, and have it be a little center fire 6-shooter that I can position this firing pin on and rotate it just by rotating it at the end, and use it so they can have multiple shots. The practical upside of this is that this hammer cannot fall forward unless you've already pulled the trigger at all. It won't do it, which makes it drop safe, which means you could technically leave this in here, and I would never have anything in here. It would just be in one of these empties. But I'd like to make it to where it can fire lots of little cap gun caps. I might even just make it to where it just does the 8-shot caps. Again, this started with me trying to help somebody find out how they could get their own PUBG flare gun without having to make one, and finding out that there's this plethora of bullshit rules. And I do find it ironic that it's actually easier for me to get a street-legal 1-inch bore, 4-gauge, real fucking shotgun pistol. It's a flare gun. And then just stick a Schedule 40 3/4-inch pipe in it and make it into a long gun by having it be 26 inches long and use that for a 12-gauge pistol. Long barrel. The ATF rules don't make any sense. It doesn't make anything better happen. And because of the stupid rules and restrictions, it was easier to get this. And here's the reason I was able to. Because they sent me a hazmat item, the shotgun shells. This is technically considered legally easier to get and cheaper than the real flare gun I wanted, with nothing included. Thank you, 5th Ops, for sending this to me and running this treacherous race between all the rules and regulations in every state in the Union. And ATF, and God only knows what else. And thanks, ATF, for making sure I got a toy gun with no fucking orange tip on it. But hey, at least I can't stick a 50 BMG in it for some reason. Obviously, it's because I have an off-brand 50 BMG. Ruskies. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. I hope this has been useful, and I hope it's shorter than the previous video that I made after 8 takes. Bye.